My name is Paige Bryant, and I'm a 28-year-old programmer living by myself in downtown Memphis, Tennessee. I used to think I had built a life that was completely independent of my family's influence. But one night in October, during a very uncomfortable family dinner at their place in the suburbs, everything changed. My dad slammed his fist on the table, and his voice cut through the room like a knife. "You owe this family," he said. "Sign the $270,000 loan for your brother's house, and do it now." A hush fell over everyone. I felt the weight of 8 pairs of eyes on me. My mom, my little sister, and some other relatives were all expecting me to give in. My brother just sat back with a smug grin on his face. They thought they had me trapped, that I would just cave like I always had. But I was done being their personal ATM. I leaned forward, made eye contact with my dad, and smiled. "If family is everything," I said, my voice steady, "then I'm just giving back what you all taught me." That's when everything exploded, and I never saw it coming. It wasn't just about the money, though. It was about control, betrayal, and the lies they would tell to keep me in line. What happened next completely unraveled the hold they thought they had on me. Want to know just how far my family would go to break me? Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to find out. That night at dinner wasn't the first time I had clashed with my family's demands. It was just the loudest. I'm Paige Bryant, and for years I had been their go-to person for every financial problem, and I got nothing but empty words in return. It started a few years after I got my first job as a programmer. Dad called one evening, his voice rough. "The power bill's overdue," he said. "You've got a good job, so pitch in." I sent them $400, thinking it was just a one-time thing. But soon it was water bills, gas bills, and even their cable subscription. Every month, Mom would text, "We're a little short this week. Can you help us out?" I wired the money, thinking I was doing the right thing for my family. Then came the big ask, paying for my little sister's college tuition. "Zoe really needs this," Mom said, her voice full of expectation. "You wouldn't let her down, would you?" I paid thousands of dollars to her university, draining my savings, and hoping that it would mean something to them. My older brother, Cole Bryant, took it to another level. He would show up in a brand new truck or jet off to Cancun, always with some elaborate story about investing in his future. One time, he bragged about spending $7,000 on a business conference that was really just a party in New Orleans. My dad, Dennis Bryant, would nod proudly and say, "Cole's got vision." My mom, Kathleen Bryant, would smile and say, "He's just finding his way." Meanwhile, I was the one keeping the lights on. When I asked why Cole never contributed, Dad shut me down. "You've got a stable job, Paige, so don't make a fuss," he said. The pattern just kept getting worse. A few years ago, they hit me with a family crisis. They needed $10,000, no questions asked. I sent it, only to find out later that it had funded Cole's new boat. When I confronted Mom about it, she brushed it off. "You're doing fine," she said. "Let your brother live a little." That really hurt. I was working overtime, coding until dawn, just to stay afloat, while Cole was out partying without a care in the world. They never even asked about my life. "No, how's your job going?" Or, "Are you holding up okay?" It was just another text saying, "We need $600 by tomorrow." Zoe, my little sister, Zoe Bryant, started following their lead. A year ago, she called and said, "Sis, I need $400 for textbooks." I sent it, and then I saw her Instagram filled with photos from concerts, and she was wearing brand new sneakers. When I brought it up, Mom snapped, "Zoe's young. She deserves to have some fun." I felt like such a fool. Every dollar I gave was just a transaction, not a bond. The worst thing happened last year. Cole pitched a business idea to Mom and Dad, a startup that sounded like a scam from the very beginning. They co-signed a loan for him, and when it all fell apart, they turned to me. "You have to help us clean this up," Dad said, his voice sharp. I said no for the first time, and the silence on the other end was deafening. Mom's next call was softer, but it was still pointed. "Family doesn't abandon family, Paige," she said. But I was finally starting to see it. They weren't my family, they were just users. All those years, I thought that giving meant belonging. I would sit in my apartment, checking my bank account, and wondering why I felt so empty. They praised Cole's crazy dreams, excused Zoe's carelessness, and just leaned on me without even thinking about it. Every call was just a reminder that I was their safety net, not their daughter. I started to pull back, ignoring their requests, and letting their voicemails pile up, but they didn't stop. That's when Mom's call came, vague and urgent, about an important family matter. I should have seen it coming, but I went to that dinner hoping for something different. Realizing that I was never really part of my family didn't break me. It actually pushed me to create my own path. And by the time that October rolled around, I had built a life that I was proud of, one line of code at a time. My career as a programmer started small debugging scripts for a local startup here in Memphis. I worked my way up, taking on freelance jobs, and then landing a full-time position at a tech firm downtown. I loved the thrill of solving problems, of turning chaos into clean, functional apps. My latest project was a mobile app for a retail chain, a 6-month grind that paid off with a promotion and a corner office. Living in a sleek apartment in the heart of Memphis, I could finally breathe. No roommates, no family breathing down my neck. Just me, my laptop, and a view of the city skyline. I had fought hard for that independence, paying my own way, while everyone else leaned on me. But the shadow of my family still lingered. A few months ago, I started to pull back, ignoring their calls for money. Their voicemails piled up, each one sharper than the last. My brother, Cole Bryant, was the worst. In recent meetings, he had been acting shady, dropping hints about big plans that sounded just like his usual schemes. Once, at a coffee shop, he showed up in a tailored suit, talking about a real estate deal, but dodging the details when I asked questions. His smirk seemed off, like he was sizing me up. I tried to brush it off, but it still bothered me. Then came the call from my mom, Kathleen Bryant. It was a Tuesday evening, and my phone was buzzing while I was debugging code late at the office. "Paige, we need you at the house this weekend," she said, her voice tight. "It's important family business." I asked what it was about, but she just sidestepped the question. "Just come. We'll talk then." That vagueness set my nerves on edge. Mom wasn't one for small talk, but this felt different, almost calculated. I thought about saying no, but curiosity, and maybe a little bit of hope, got the better of me. I agreed, even though my gut was telling me that something was wrong. That unease grew as I thought back to Cole's recent behavior. A few weeks ago, he had texted me out of nowhere, asking about my savings. "Just curious," he said when I pressed him about it. His tone was too casual, like he was fishing for something. I remembered another time, months earlier, when he had joked about me being the family's cash cow. The comment had stung, but I had let it slide. Now it felt like a warning. Mom's call, combined with Cole's odd vibes, made me wonder what they were planning. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. Still, I prepared for the trip. I finished up my work week, pushing my app project ahead of schedule, just to clear my mind. My coworkers even noticed that I seemed distracted, and one of them asked if I was okay. I forced a smile and said it was just family stuff, but inside I was bracing for impact. I had spent years building my life, brick by brick, and the thought of my family trying to tear it down again made my stomach twist. I told myself that I would listen to what they had to say, but I wouldn't give in. Not this time. As I packed a small bag for the weekend, I kept thinking about Mom's words. Important family business. They echoed in my mind like a bad omen. My independence, my career, my peace of mind, it all felt at risk. I didn't know what they wanted, but I knew that it wasn't just a friendly dinner. Cole's shifty behavior and Mom's cryptic tone were pieces of a puzzle that I didn't want to solve, but I knew I had to face it. One evening in the fall, I drove to their suburban house, not knowing that it would be the last time I ever stepped through that door. Walking into that house, I braced myself for whatever my family had planned. I'm Paige Bryant, and that evening in October, I stepped into a showdown that I had been avoiding for years. The dining room was thick with tension as I sat down. My dad, Dennis Bryant, was looming at the head of the table, his eyes hard. My mom, Kathleen Bryant, was hovering over the dishes, and her glances were sharp and expectant. My little sister, Zoe Bryant, was just staring at her plate, her fingers restless. My older brother, Cole Bryant, was lounging back with a smug smirk on his face. The other relatives, cousins, an aunt, and an uncle, were all staring at me, and their silence was deafening. I pushed the food around on my plate, and my pulse quickened with every forced word. About halfway through the meal, Dad slammed his fist on the table, and the sound was like a gunshot. "Paige," he snapped, "you owe this family. Co-sign the $272,000 loan to buy your brother's house. Do it now." The words hit me like a hammer. The room went completely still, and you could hear the clinking of glasses as everyone's hands froze. Mom tilted her head in a subtle nod, and her expression was tight. Zoe's eyes flicked up, wide with anticipation. Cole's smirk grew, as if he had already sealed the deal. The rest of the table was watching, just waiting for me to buckle, just like I had done so many times before. I took a deep breath, and their stares felt like they were pressing down on me like a vice. They thought that I would just sign away my future, just hand over my name to back Cole's dream home. But I was done, being their fallback option. I leaned forward, meeting Dad's glare head-on. "If family is everything," I said, my voice cold, "then I'm just giving back what you taught me." The words cut through the silence like a knife. Dad's face flushed red. "This isn't a choice, Paige," he growled. "You're co-signing for Cole's house, or you're betraying us." Cole leaned in, his tone dripping with mockery. "Don't be so stingy, sis," he said. "It's just your name on a piece of paper." Mom's voice followed, soft but piercing. "We've always supported you, Paige. This is how you repay us." Zoe shifted uncomfortably, but she didn't say anything, and her silence was louder than words. I shoved my chair back, and the screech echoed in the hushed room. "Supported me?" I shot back. "When I paid your utilities? When I funded Zoe's college? Or when you let Cole squander thousands while I was barely scraping by?" Dad opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. "I'm not co-signing anything," I said. "Not for Cole's house, not for any of you." Murmurs rippled across the table, but I didn't care anymore. Cole's smirk faded, and his eyes narrowed. Mom's face crumpled, and her hands twisted together. Zoe looked torn, and her fingers were gripping her fork. I grabbed my bag and stood up. Dad's voice boomed. "Walk out that door, and you're done with this family." I stopped at the threshold and turned to face them. "Family," I said. "You taught me that family demands and takes. I'm done giving." Cole surged forward, his voice low and venomous. "You'll pay for this, Paige," he said. I just held his stare. "Go ahead and try," I said, my voice steady, and then I stepped out. The night air hit me like a wave as I walked to my car. My heart was racing, but it wasn't from fear. It was from freedom. They had tried to chain me to Cole's reckless ambitions, to a house that I would never live in, with a loan that would have haunted me for years. But I had finally broken free. Cole's threat lingered in the air, and Mom's cryptic call from days ago now felt like a clear setup. I knew that they would come after me, but I wasn't the same Paige who would just bend to their will anymore. I had built my own life, and no one was going to drag me back. As I pulled away, the house faded in my rearview mirror. I didn't know what their next move would be, but I was ready to protect what was mine, no matter what they threw at me. The dining room went silent, and I walked out that door, knowing that there was no going back. Leaving that house felt like breaking free from a cage, and that night, I took the first real step to protect everything that I had built. Back in my apartment in Memphis, I didn't waste a single second. I opened my laptop and pulled up the shared bank account that my family had been draining for years. It was a relic of my misguided loyalty, a lifeline that they had abused without any hesitation. No longer. With steady hands, I logged in, froze their access, and transferred every single dollar of my money to a new, private account. I changed every password, double-checked every setting, and hit confirm. My pulse was racing, not from doubt, but from pure determination. By midnight, I had severed their last grip on my finances, making sure that they would never touch my savings again. The next morning, before dawn, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I just let it ring, already suspecting what was coming. Voicemails started flooding in, one after another. I didn't listen to them, but I knew that the chaos had begun. My older brother, Cole Bryant, had been depending on that shared account to dodge his debts. Without it, his house of cards was about to come crashing down. A text from a cousin later that day confirmed it. The bank had called my family first thing in the morning, flagging all of the overdue accounts. Cole's personal loans, which he had racked up from his reckless spending, were now unraveling. Creditors were circling, and he had no one to cover for him. My phone just kept vibrating with calls from Mom, Dad, and Zoe. Each one felt like a hook, trying to reel me back in. Mom's voicemails were gentle at first, urging me to call back and sort this out. Dad's were gruff, ordering me to stop this nonsense and help your brother. Cole's were pure venom, accusing me of ruining his life. I deleted every single message without replying. They had treated me like a cash machine for way too long. Their words couldn't sway me now. I was completely done being their safety net. At the office, I dove into my coding projects with a clarity that I hadn't felt in years. My app, a sleek interface for a retail client, was just days away from launching. I pored over every line of code, fixing bugs and refining features, just letting the work anchor me. A colleague noticed my focus and joked about my laser-like energy. I gave her a small smile, but I kept the truth to myself. The weight of my family's demands was gone, replaced by a lightness that I hadn't even known I could feel. For the first time, I was living for myself, and not for them. Meanwhile, Cole's world was imploding. My cousin's updates painted a pretty grim picture. His real estate empire was really just a sham, built on loans that he couldn't repay and promises that he couldn't keep. The bank's call to the family earlier that week had exposed his unpaid debts, and now the foreclosure notice had tied Mom and Dad's fate to his mistakes. They had bet everything on him, shielding him from the consequences of his recklessness, while also expecting me to clean up his mess. I felt a little flicker of pity for Mom and Dad, but it faded away quickly. They had enabled Cole, ignored me, and now they were paying the price for it. I kept my distance, letting their calls pile up unanswered. Mom's messages grew more frantic, begging me to think of the family. Dad's turned sharper, accusing me of abandoning them. Cole didn't call, but I knew that he was probably scheming, and that he was definitely blaming me for his downfall. I deleted every voicemail and every text without a second thought. Their drama wasn't my responsibility anymore. At work, I just stayed focused, pouring all of my energy into the final testing phase for my app. My team was getting ready for the launch, and I was thriving in the structure of code and deadlines. One of my coworkers asked why I seemed so calm, despite all the family stuff that I had mentioned before. I just shrugged and said that it was all handled. In truth, I was really savoring the quiet, the silence of my phone now that I had blocked their numbers. I was just enjoying the peace of a life that was no longer tied to their endless demands. Zoe's text still lingered in my mind, though. Her doubt about Cole was new, a crack in the family's blind loyalty to him. I wondered if she would dig deeper, but I couldn't afford to get involved. I had spent years being their fixer, and every single time I had given in, it had cost me more than just money. Now I was protecting my own stability, my own future. I checked my private account every day, just to make sure that it was still secure. I had also called my bank to set up alerts for any suspicious activity, just in case Cole tried something desperate. Their house might have been on the line, but my life wasn't. I wasn't going to let their mistakes drag me down again. Standing my ground felt like I was finally claiming my freedom, and that morning, as the bank called them, I just sat still, knowing that I had made the right choice. Cutting my family off felt like I was reclaiming my life, and by the end of that week, their world began to crumble under the weight of their own choices. A few days after I had locked the shared account, the fallout hit them hard. My parents, Dennis Bryant and Kathleen Bryant, got a notice from the bank that their house was facing foreclosure. They had taken out loans years ago, pouring money into my older brother's failed ventures, into Cole Bryant's so-called businesses that had never made a dime of profit. The bank's letter was blunt. It said that their payments were overdue and that the clock was ticking. Their suburban home, the one that they had always leaned on me to help them sustain, was now slipping away from them. My phone lit up with a call from Mom that afternoon. Her voice was trembling as she begged, "Paige, you have to help us save the house. Please, just open the account again." I stayed silent, just letting her words hang in the air. Dad called next, and his tone was a mix of anger and desperation. "This is your family's home," he said. "Don't let it go just because of your pride." I still didn't respond. Their pleas felt just like echoes of that dinner where they had demanded that I co-sign Cole's $270,000 loan. I had already drawn my line in the sand. I wasn't going to step back over it. Then came a text from my little sister, Zoe Bryant. It was different from the others, hesitant. "Sis, what's going on? Did Cole really mess things up this bad?" Her words caught me off guard. Zoe had always been caught in the family's web, but now it seemed like she was starting to question Cole's actions. I stared at the message, and I was tempted to reply, to tell her exactly how he had squandered everything. But I held back. Explaining things would just pull me back into their chaos, and I was completely done with that. Cole's failures were the root of everything. My cousin's updates filled in the gaps. His real estate empire was just a scam, built on loans that he couldn't repay, and promises that he couldn't keep. The bank's call to the family days earlier had exposed his unpaid debts, and now the foreclosure notice had tied Mom and Dad's fate to his mistakes. They had bet everything on him, shielding him from the consequences of his recklessness, while expecting me to clean up his mess. I felt a flicker of pity for Mom and Dad, but it faded quickly. They had enabled Cole, ignored me, and now they were paying the price. I kept my distance, just letting their calls pile up unanswered. Mom's messages grew more and more frantic, begging me to think of the family. Dad's turned sharper, accusing me of abandoning them. Cole didn't call, but I knew that he was probably scheming, and that he was definitely blaming me for his collapse. I deleted every voicemail and every text without a second thought. Their drama wasn't my responsibility anymore. At work, I stayed focused, pouring my energy into the final testing phase for my app. My team was getting ready for the launch, and I was thriving in the structure of code and deadlines. A coworker asked why I seemed so calm, despite all the family stuff that I had mentioned before. I just shrugged, saying that it was handled. In truth, I was really savoring the quiet, the silence of my phone when I blocked their numbers. The peace of a life that was no longer tethered to their demands. Zoe's text still lingered in my mind, though. Her doubt about Cole was new, a crack in the family's blind loyalty to him. I wondered if she would dig deeper, but I couldn't afford to get involved. I had spent years being their fixer, and every time I had given in, it had cost me more than just money. Now I was protecting my own stability, my own future. I checked my private account every day, just to make sure that it was still secure. I had also called my bank to set up alerts for any suspicious activity, just in case Cole tried something desperate. Their house might be on the line, but my life wasn't. I wasn't going to let their mistakes pull me under again. Standing my ground felt like claiming my freedom. And the following week, my family's desperation turned into something much uglier. It all started with a post that I didn't see coming at all. My older brother, Cole Bryant, took to social media and started spreading a lie that I had gone bankrupt and was dodging my debts. His posts spread quickly, painting me as a deadbeat who had just left the family high and dry. And then he went even further. He tried to open bank accounts in my name. I only found out when my bank flagged some suspicious activity. My parents, Dennis Bryant and Kathleen Bryant, then piled on, posting their own attacks. Mom wrote about how I had abandoned them in their time of need, while Dad called me ungrateful, claiming that I had turned my back on family values. Their words stung, but not enough to shake me. My best friend, Lindsay Carter, called me that evening, and her voice was sharp with urgency. "Paige, you have to see this," she said. And then she forwarded me screenshots of Cole's posts. She had been monitoring their accounts because she knew that they would lash out after I cut them off. "They're trashing you online, and Cole's trying to mess with your finances. You need to get a lawyer now." Her warning really hit me hard. I had expected some pushback, but not this, a calculated attempt to ruin my reputation and steal my identity. I didn't hesitate for even a second. The very next morning, I called the Memphis police and filed a report about Cole's attempts to open accounts in my name. The officer took my statement, and he noted the bank's alerts as evidence. I explained to him how Cole's lies were all tied to his financial mess, and how he had expected me to co-sign his $270,000 loan and bail him out. The officer advised me to lock my credits, so I contacted the major credit bureaus Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and placed a freeze on all of my accounts. It was a simple step, but it felt like I was raising a shield. No one was going to get through to my finances again. Lindsay kept me updated, sending me more screenshots as my family's posts just kept getting nastier. Mom's latest rant called me selfish, claiming that I had just left them to lose their home. Dad's posts were colder, accusing me of betraying the family that raised me right. Their followers, distant relatives, old neighbors all chimed in, spreading their narrative. I didn't even read the comments. I knew the truth. They had leaned on me for years, and now they were just twisting the story to save face. I stayed off of social media, refusing to engage with them. Responding would only fuel their fire even more, and I wasn't about to give them that kind of power. Instead, I focused on my work, diving into the final tweaks for my app's launch. My team was buzzing with excitement, and I just let their energy pull me forward. A coworker asked me if I was doing okay, and she said that she had noticed how quiet and focused I had been. "I'm just handling some personal stuff," I said, keeping it vague. The office was my sanctuary, a place where I could control the outcome, and they couldn't. Lindsay's advice about a lawyer really stuck with me. So I reached out to a local attorney who specialized in identity theft and defamation. During our call, I laid out everything for him. Kohl's fake accounts, my parents, posts, all of those years of financial misuse. The attorney was calm, but he was also very direct. "You've got a pretty strong case," he said, "but it's going to take some time. You need to keep records of everything." So I started saving every screenshot that Lindsay sent me, every bank alert, and every police report. It was my armor, proof that I wasn't the villain that they wanted the world to see. Kohl's lies and my parents' attacks were all they had. Their last-ditch effort to drag me back failed miserably. They seemed to think they could shame me into opening my wallet one more time, but I was completely finished. I had locked down my finances, reported their shady dealings, and fiercely protected my reputation. Their venomous words simply couldn't touch the career I'd built, the life I'd carved out, the future I'd tirelessly fought for. One morning, Lindsay called, her voice tight with urgency, warning me that they'd crossed a line. Their relentless attacks were powerless to hold me back. And then, the following month, I left Memphis in my rearview mirror, ready for a fresh start in Nashville, Tennessee. I packed efficiently, taking only the things that truly mattered: my trusty laptop, a handful of clothes, and the unwavering resolve to build a life that was unequivocally my own. Nashville was absolutely vibrant, a city humming with endless opportunity, a world away from the crushing weight of my family's never-ending drama. I settled into a small but cozy apartment, its clean lines and peacefully quiet corners, a welcome contrast to the utter chaos I'd finally escaped. My app launched without a hitch, earning praise from both my dedicated team and my enthusiastic clients. Work quickly became my anchor, a safe space where I could shape my own future without their constant interference. I knew I wanted the truth to come out, but definitely not through their toxic social media battles. So I recorded a video, calm and crystal clear, laying out all the hard facts. How my family had been shamelessly misusing my money for years. How Kohl Bryant had tried to ensnare me with that ridiculously overpriced $270 sauce. How their malicious lies about my supposed bankruptcy were nothing but a desperate attempt to smear my good name. I sent the video to my best friend, Lindsay Carter, asking her to share it with the relatives who'd been tragically fed their twisted version of events. I didn't post it myself. I didn't need to. Lindsay's extensive network was more than enough to spread the unvarnished truth. And it wasn't long before whispers reached my ears that my family's credibility was quickly crumbling. Kohl and the entire family paid a heavy price for their disgraceful actions. Lindsay's frequent updates confirmed it all. Their social media posts steadily lost traction as more and more relatives began to question their self-serving narrative. Kohl's so-called real estate empire was exposed for the house of cards that it was, leaving him drowning in a sea of debt. My parents, stripped of their beloved house and their once pristine reputation, faced a community that no longer trusted them as far as they could throw them. Their complete financial ruin was entirely their own doing, built on years of enabling Kohl's harebrained schemes while completely ignoring my pleas for help. I felt absolutely no satisfaction, only immense relief that their suffocating hold on me was finally, irrevocably gone. A text message from my little sister, Zoe Bryant, appeared on my phone one evening. "Sis, I'm so sorry," it read. "I honestly didn't know the whole story." Her words were undoubtedly heavy, dripping with regret, but I chose not to reply. Zoe had stood silently by while they relentlessly pressured me, and even though her newfound doubt about Kohl was a small step in the right direction, it was far too little, far too late. I wasn't exactly angry, but I definitely wasn't ready to reopen that painful chapter of my life. My silence wasn't meant as punishment. It was simply self-preservation, a clear boundary I'd finally learned to set and enforce. The harsh lesson hit me like a ton of bricks. Unwavering independence was my only real shield against their constant manipulation. For years, I'd allowed misplaced guilt and a misguided sense of loyalty to pull me headfirst into their never-ending chaos, foolishly thinking that family meant unconditional sacrifice. But they'd relentlessly taught me that family could also exploit, demand, and outright betray. Walking away, locking down my accounts, and standing firm in my convictions showed me, once and for all, that I could not only survive, but thrive without their approval. My career, my inner peace, my personal choices. They were finally mine now, and utterly untouchable. I diligently kept my routine as steady as possible, coding diligently by day, and enthusiastically exploring Nashville's vibrant streets by night. The city's palpable energy fueled me, from its cozy coffee shops to its serene parks where I could peacefully think and reflect. I meticulously checked my accounts regularly, making absolutely certain that the credit freeze was still firmly in place. The police case against Cole was moving at a snail's pace, but my attorney confidently assured me that we had more than enough damning evidence to secure a conviction. I didn't harbor any desire for revenge, just the comforting security of knowing that I had successfully protected myself from their destructive influence. Lindsay stayed faithfully in touch, my one remaining link to the past that was actually worth keeping. She'd call with regular updates, her voice always warm with genuine pride at how incredibly far I'd come. I didn't feel the need to talk much about my family anymore. They were a closed chapter in the book of my life, a chapter I'd happily put behind me. Their lingering shadows were steadily fading with each and every step I resolutely took in my exciting new life. December finally arrived, and I stood confidently on my new apartment's balcony, completely free from their long and oppressive shadows.